Well, hello everybody and welcome to the Mind Body Studio. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm your host Tracy Lee, molecular biologist, holistic health coach, best-selling author and international speaker, menstrual cycle specialist for women and girls, and founder of the Divine Feminine Sisterhood. So you're going to be joining me every week and my very special guests as we cover a range of topics on health, relationships, spirituality, women's issues, self-care, science, and so much more. So sit down, grab yourself a nice warm drink, relax, and enjoy. We're so glad you're here. And welcome back everybody to another episode on the Mind Body Studio. And I have a beautiful guest joining me today. Her name is Abi Wilde. Abi is a dedicated mum to her 2-year-old son Jack, and at 41 is currently 32 weeks pregnant with her beautiful daughter Sadie, who is due in December. As a certified integrative health and EFT practitioner and coach, Abi takes a holistic approach, nurturing the mind, body, and soul, empowering women to optimize their fertility and enhance egg quality, whether they're preparing for IVF or pursuing natural conception. With her expertise, personal experience, and thorough research, Abi provides comprehensive support and guidance to help women navigate their fertility journeys with confidence and care. Hi, Abi. How are you going?
Hi, babe. How are you?
I'm good.
Excellent. Likewise. Also so good. Thanks so much for having me on. So good to be here.
You're so welcome. I'm so glad we got to do this chat because I feel like all of the things that you do and cover with women is so crucial to get out there and to communicate to others. So I'm glad you're here. And I know we have so much to cover in this chat today.
Indeed. There's a lot.
But I just wanted to start with telling our listeners a little bit about your own personal journey through this process.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's hard to know where to start.
Right at the beginning, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, like when I kind of hit my kind of early 30s, I had some kind of hormonal shift. And I just started getting like debilitating pain with my periods, and I just didn't know what was going on. And I went to the doctor and got a couple of scans and stuff. And I had a bunch of cysts on my ovaries, and I was getting weird pain, like even mid-cycle. And so that was a bit of a red flag. And then I was previously married, and we had tried to conceive a few times, and it just wasn't really happening in that relationship. And then that marriage ended, and I kind of was faced with that daunting idea that I may have to choose between having my own biological children or not. Mm-hmm. And then I got diagnosed with endometriosis after that, and that kind of put me on this path. I was so fortunate to meet the love of my life, like very shortly after that marriage ended. And and then a year later, we decided that we would try for a baby, and it just wasn't happening. And, it's like either endometriosis or unexplained infertility. And it was all very overwhelming. But I just threw myself headfirst into learning everything I possibly could about preconception health, and did so much preconception work. And eventually we decided to do IVF, and we had really great outcomes. Actually, we kind of, especially for our ages, because I was 39 at the time, and I think Chris was like 42. And so we got 12 eggs, and all 12 fertilized, and we got 9 tested embryos, and and then we fell pregnant with Jack straight away.
Amazing.
Which was so amazing because, when you're thrown into the world of like, and I hate using the word infertility because I think that that's highly mismanaged and overused. But at the time, I didn't know much better. And, it's such an overwhelming space to be in, and there's so much fear. Mm-hmm. And to get that outcome so quickly for us was just such a blessing.
Yeah.
And then since then I've done even more preconception work. Yep. After Jack was born, I had to make this decision of whether I was going to keep breastfeeding him. But at 18 months, I stopped because I was like, I need to do some more preconception work for baby number 2, and threw myself into all of those things all over again. And yeah, we weren't actually trying at the time because we were just going to go for we had all these beautiful embryos from doing a round of IVF. And I fell pregnant naturally on our wedding day.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Which is crazy cool.
Yes.
So she had a very short window to make her appearance.
Yeah.
And so I was actually just finishing off a heavy metal detox when I fell pregnant with her.
So you literally got married this year then? I'm just going to take a pause. You got married this year?
Yes.
Oh,
in
that's
March.
so exciting.
Yeah, mid-March. Cool. So that was really exciting. And it was just also this amazing moment where you're like, oh my gosh, my body did this, like we did this.
Yeah.
After, really feeling like, no, my body can't do this,
Yeah.
So, we were pretty excited.
Oh, I have no doubt. And I bet that kind of came as a surprise, right? Because you guys sound like you've been through the journey, with all these different, right, of all these different diagnoses and IVF and all the treatments and having to go through collections. And then all of a sudden she just kind of spontaneously joined. So that's amazing.
And I'm a major planner. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I was like fully planning like the next baby almost to be like compatible with our star sign. Yeah. Like that's the level that I was going to. And it's so funny because, Chris was like, oh, well, why don't we just try March? And I was like, no, but that would mean we'd be having a December baby. I was like, that's just really inconvenient.
Yeah.
And we're having a December baby anyway. Well, anyway, we are thrilled.
Oh,
yeah.
That's really exciting. And it does sound like you guys have been through the journey, right? Because you've experienced your own rhythm and cycle previously of having some difficulties and, getting pregnant and then going in through IVF and finding, what works and what doesn't work, but then naturally conceiving. It's almost like you've had a snapshot of the whole thing all the way through, haven't you?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And we can't forget Chris in this equation either because I had him on a pretty rigorous
I can imagine. I can totally imagine.
Yeah, like I'm all into like the crazy alternative health stuff and he's just an AFL loving, beer drinking, beer garden man,
Yeah. I totally get it. And like that brings me to let's talk about the body first. Oh, by the way, I just want to say, hey, Sydney, because you're in Sydney and I'm in Perth. So we're running at a bit of a time difference here. So I really appreciate you jumping online at this time because we've got a 3-hour difference.
Totally fine.
So if anything happens there and you get interrupted, no problem. We'll just rosy on over and we'll just work it out. But
I do have a pretty needy dog, so who knows? We'll see.
I remember when we had our other catch-up. Actually, my dog's outside today, so I put her out because I was like, I can't have her snoring because sometimes she sits in here and snores.
Oh, man.
She's outside. But anyway.
I feel you.
So let's talk about body first. And so
much to cover.
I know, right? And this is the thing. So you talked about natural alternatives or alternate therapies and things like that. And I think when you're diagnosed or you have like a misdiagnosis of, autoimmune or inflammatory conditions like Hashimoto's and endometriosis and PCOS, it can send people into a bit of a spiral of overwhelm. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, having endometriosis myself, there's a lot of unknowns about that and how to deal with it for sure.
Yeah. And so what are some of the main things, that you feel that listeners really need to know when it comes to fertility and working with your body?
Yeah. Well, for starters, I reckon getting some thorough testing done to start with is always a good place to start.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time our inability to fall pregnant can come down to misdiagnosed or mismanaged autoimmune or inflammatory conditions,
Yeah.
like you mentioned, Hashimoto's, endometriosis, PCOS, high levels of heavy metals, imbalanced gut and digestion, having low bile, high bile, low stomach acid, food sensitivities, all those kind of infections and stuff like parasites or H. pylori, candida overgrowth. Like a lot of these things lead to inflammation in the body, and we just really need to find out where everybody's at, because everybody's going to have a different picture to deal with. And this is actually some of the more low-hanging fruit, because once you kind of know what you're dealing with, then you can kind of navigate a path forward and how to, manage some of these conditions or, fix them up,
Yeah, totally. And I can totally relate to that because, even working in this field of expertise myself, it doesn't mean I don't have some sort of deficiency playing out or some genetic issue playing out. So for me, my iron levels are always been low. So it doesn't matter how much I eat, iron, it just never works for me, right? So I've done everything. I've eaten iron-rich foods. I've taken iron-rich tablets. I've done all of those things. I've been very conscious of that. However, at the end of the day, I have to have infusions because my body just doesn't seem to absorb the iron. So that is a gut issue, right? So you just don't know what's playing out. You might feel really well and you might feel really healthy, but you don't know what's happening in your gut. You don't know what your body's actually absorbing into the bloodstream or what it's actually using. And so having a really clear picture of your mineral and vitamin spectrum does give you that one step bit more of information that might be vital.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, nutrient deficiencies are also a major obstacle for people. So getting those levels tested and getting like a complete thyroid panel, getting your thyroid antibodies, like you said, iron levels, vitamin D, which low vitamin D is actually linked to low AMH. So upping your vitamin D can actually improve your AMH levels. Also, getting your homocysteine checked and seeing how you're going there. And like you mentioned, genetic stuff, a lot of the population have an MTHFR gene mutation, which can, cause inflammation, and you need certain activated B vitamins. And, there's just a lot to consider. And it can feel quite overwhelming, but really we should feel really empowered because there's so much we can do. Like once you start investigating, and getting those results and stuff, at least you are in a better position to kind of like make some changes.
I'm so glad you said that, instead of going, of course it feels overwhelming if it's all coming in at once, but there is like a methodical approach to it, just like cancelling things out and going, okay, that's something I need to deal with, or that's not something I need to worry about. So actually going through it in a logical way just kind of shifts everything, and then you can really work out what are some of the key issues that you do need to look at. And so I'm so glad you said that as an empowerment rather than overwhelm, because I think this area for women can feel really overwhelming because as a woman, you feel as though it's your biological purpose, right, to produce babies. And when things aren't running the way they're supposed to, there's all this guilt and shame and fear, and it's a very scary place, right?
That's the mindset piece for sure.
Yeah.
Just dealing with all that. But something that is very encouraging is that apparently only around 3% of the population are actually infertile or sterile in the technical sense. Yeah. And that means that 97% of us who are told that we can't conceive actually can.
Yeah.
So infertility is diagnosed far more often than it should be.
Yeah.
And there's a Dr. Cleopatra, a professor from the UCS. She says that most fertility issues are more correctly classified as subfertility issues.
Yeah.
Which can affect obviously men, women, couples. And there are definitely things that we can do to increase our chances of conceiving. So, there is a lot of hope for most of us.
So much hope. And I just want to read
Yeah.
through a couple of the points here that we wrote down in your pre-prepared notes, which I really appreciate. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries.
You know, the basic things like clean water. So using like
Oh
a
my goodness.
really good filtration system. And I don't mean like a Brita one, which just takes out like, you know, a little bit of the stuff. We need to be looking at parasites, microbes, heavy metals, all of those things actually get stuck in the body and become quite toxic. It's amazing what just cleaning up that one area does for your whole body. So I just want to...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, I'm absolutely like, I am such an advocate for clean water. I will not drink tap water under any circumstances.
Me neither.
I feel disgusting even bathing in it. Like my husband was freaking out because the minute we moved into this house, I was like, okay, well, I'm getting a whole water filtration system put on the house. There was so much thorough research that went into that. You know, so yeah, I mean, there's like, it's outrageous because there's like trace levels of heavy metals, BPAs, pharmaceutical drugs, phthalates, all of these things interfere with our hormone function. And on top of that, like a lot of the water, because I mean, I have this notion that like we're basically being poisoned slowly to avoid acute illness. So we really need to be aware that like water is everything. Our bodies are made up of primarily water. So water is life. It's the life force, you know. We need it for every single function in our body. Not to mention the fact that, you know, if you are, you know, like if you're dehydrated, that also leads to poor egg quality, and staying hydrated helps with cervical mucus production, which is obviously really important for conception. But I mean, just from an overall health perspective, like bathing in, you know, just conventional tap water is, for me, it's a big no-no because you're inhaling like all this chlorine. It's like, you know, we need to lower our toxic load as much as possible. There is so much coming at us from so many different, you know, areas in the world right now. And just coming back to nature, you know, is just always where it's at. So clean water for me is so important. You know, people would say like, oh, have your 8 to 9 glasses a day, but what's the quality of the water that you're drinking?
Yes, I know. And I always think about that. I'm like, oh my God, all the fluoride and the chlorine and all of that stuff. That they're actually, so they might be doing the right thing and drinking, you know, their 8 glasses of water, but they're also taking in all of those toxic chemicals as well. And so it always freaks me out. It always freaks me out. And I'm with you. I'm a huge advocate for clean water. I have a full filtration system in my house. And I refuse to like drink any other water, which is a bit of a nightmare when I have to go somewhere. So, you know, we just 100%. Have to kind of suck it up and deal with it, that I'm going to be a bit slow on the outtake because I have to take my water with me. But it's Absolutely. So important. And, you know, likewise, we're talking about getting back to natural things. Sleep, for example. Right? And the dangers of these blue lights on our melatonin production. So melatonin is, people often associate melatonin as this, the chemical, the hormone in the brain that gets released just to make us go to sleep. But it's actually so much more than that. It actually has a really massive role in the body. So not only does it, of course, help regulate our circadian rhythm and our up and down time, but it's actually a natural cancer cell scavenger. So when it's released in the brain and it's doing its thing at nighttime, it's looking for abnormal cells. It's looking for things that shouldn't be there. It's trying to clean up the body. And so when we're delaying it at nighttime, you know, and looking at our blue light, which I know you're going to talk about, looking at our blue light, right, we're actually stopping that production, and it's so vital. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, like you said, you know, the blue light and the melatonin production, all that stuff. So, you know, it basically, tricks the body into believing that it's daytime when it's actually, you're preparing for sleep. So, there's so many things that we can do to optimize our sleep. And I mean, if you are going to be using blue light, you can, like, I love biohacking.
Oh,
I'm
yay.
like, any cool biohacking tips are so good.
Yes.
So there's a great company called Bon Charge, and they sell like blue blockers, which are like blue light blocking glasses, which you can wear at night. They sell these red light globes that you can replace in your home. So yeah, there's so many things that you can do there to kind of minimize the blue light. I mean, obviously, along with just like trying to do more relaxation before bed and, maybe not looking at a screen 1 hour before you're meant to sleep.
Yeah.
And, creating a good sleep schedule, getting to bed early, not eating 3 hours before bed, not drinking 2 hours before bed. And not using, blue light 1 hour before bed. These are all things that you can do to kind of optimize your sleep space, and, making sure the temperature in your room is like an optimal kind of 18 degrees, avoiding caffeine and alcohol. All of these kinds of things are really helpful in optimizing our sleep.
Absolutely.
So,
I know you've got, yes, keep going. Keep going. I was going to jump to the next topic, which is like epigenetics, because that excites me. So I want to know what you have to say about epigenetics.
Oh my goodness. It's wild.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, it's actually crazy because with epigenetics, it's like we are born with certain genes, right? And we actually have the ability to turn inflammatory genes on and off in our body, just like we can turn on the good ones.
Yeah.
But, all of these things, all these dietary changes, all the lifestyle changes, the way that we choose to live our lives actually dictate our genetics, or how our genetics are expressed, rather.
Yes.
That is epigenetics.
Yes.
So, it's a really empowering place to be, because all of these different things that put stresses on the body also, come into play. Sorry, my dog is this asshole. But it's not just that. It's not just about our epigenetics. It's like once you actually are pregnant, you also have the power to influence your child's genetics,
Yes.
your child's epigenetics, not your child's genetics.
Yes.
So every single thing that you do when you actually do fall pregnant will actually be turning his or her genes on or off, So this is a really amazing place to be, because it just gives us so much power over the outcomes, because we've all got predispositions towards certain illnesses, autoimmune conditions. I mean, if you think about it, like a 6-year-old child, and, they kind of develop an autoimmune condition like in their 30s or something, they still had the same genes, like their genes haven't changed, but it's the expression of those genes and the environment of those genes, and, the way that our lifestyles influence those genes that really can move the needle.
And I'm like nodding like intensely at the mic going, yes, exactly. Because, like for myself, I've studied, genetics. It's a big part of like my education. And it is Dr. Bruce Lipton who does a lot of work on epigenetics. And if people are interested in finding out more, I would say the first port of call will be to go and seek him out and look what he writes about, because it is amazing once you have that understanding that your environmental factors, your stress levels, everything in your external world actually plays a massive role in what genes are switched on and switched off. And we have the power, we really do, of controlling that and affecting that and changing the way that genes are expressed. And so I think there is my understanding, and I could be wrong because I haven't looked at epigenetics for a while, but I do believe that there's only about 5 or 6 conditions that exist in our genetic genome that cannot be influenced in an epigenetic perspective, and that's because they are genetically predispositioned to be expressed potentially in someone's life, and you can't actually change that. So they're very extreme cases. There's only 6 of those. Everything else absolutely has the power to be switched on and switched off. We just need to learn what environmental factors play a role in switching those genes on. So I'm so glad that you mentioned this, because again, it's a way of taking our power back in understanding this big picture, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, I think I actually read the other day, like there is no gene that causes cancer.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that just leaves us with, you know, the fact that it's all about our environment. And like you said, just everything that we're doing to kind of like move the needle there.
Yeah, definitely.
So
let's talk about mindset, because this is a big part of it. So, you know, we can do all of the right things. We can do all the right things. We can tick all the boxes. We can have all the tests. We can be implementing, you know, all these changes at home and changing our cycles and changing our patterns and habits. But mindset is pretty much the biggest part of working through this journey, right? It's a huge part of the process. So I'd love to know from you, like, what you see with your clients from a mind, what you've been through, what you see with your clients, and what are some of the tips that you could give to listeners about creating healthy mindset with this topic?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when it comes to mindset, it kind of goes along with the whole stress picture, right? Because, I think something that we just need to be aware of is like how our thoughts, like inflammatory thoughts, kind of impact us in the space and how they can keep us in fight or flight. And unfortunately, the body won't prioritize baby making when we're in that kind of fight or flight state.
Yes.
So just being aware of like what our inflammatory thoughts are saying, you know, like getting stuck in comparison or telling your body it's broken or that you're not good enough, and just trying to rewrite these stories can be such a powerful piece. To like, you know, move forward. Obviously stress is a huge component because, you know, chronic stress increases cortisol, which imbalances hormones like estrogen and progesterone, which can lead to irregular ovulation and even skip periods. And studies have shown that women with high stress have a lower likelihood of conception. So, you know, taking hold of that whole stress side of things is really important because ovulation actually happens in safety.
Yes.
So,
like when you're getting married,
you know,
you're having a great day. It's like, oh, hello. Okay, whoopsie. That happened.
So hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I did feel safe.
And you know what I've found in history, like this is just a little side note. I have found that sometimes when people get new pets, their fertility increases and they conceive. It's really interesting.
What, sorry?
It increases. It increases. Like for some reason, they are more relaxed. They're looking after this puppy, or it's bringing joy or love to their life. Yeah. And so next thing they're pregnant.
Right, yes.
Right? I've seen that so many times now with people.
100%. Oh, man. Fur baby hugs. It's like major.
I know. So maybe that could be something that someone needs. Is you need a puppy. Get a puppy to cuddle. I don't know. But I have seen that. It's like it's a mental health, like, I don't know, this love that you get and this joy that you get. It just lowers people's central nervous system agitation, you know, and they're just feeling different and feeling better. And I've seen that time and time again where women who are struggling through IVF, they get a puppy, I kid you not, and within like a month or two, they're pregnant. Have you seen that before?
Could that just be the solution, please? Could that just be like,
I know,
on the list?
Get a puppy.
Get a puppy.
If only it was that simple, you know.
So easy.
Yeah, right. And like,
oh man,
one of the things I kind of want to go a little bit deeper with mindset, because, you know, the underlying core that I'm just thinking about what I feel might be the underlying cause of stress and anxiety and mindset. And it always comes back to fear, this fear of, it's never going to happen. There's something wrong with me. I don't know why it's taking so long, and one of the big things that I really try to advocate for is for people to be leaning into this fear. And, fear is part of our pain. It's part of our suffering. It's part of this negative experience. And it's so crucial for people to lean into that and to really fear it and release attachment to outcomes, because, it sounds really brutal and it can be perceived that way. But when we release and let go of this attachment of what our ideal desire and wish is, and we come into a place of acceptance, we actually shift our mindset into a place of surrender and allowing to be what will be, rather than putting these pressures and expectations on ourselves to get somewhere that we might not get to, right? And we can spend so much time stressing and feeling guilty and negative and this fear-based pain response. And it can do so much damage and keep us in that flight or flight for such a long period of time. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing to think about for sure, because, I mean, this is kind of getting it more into the spiritual side of things. But, also understanding that in this equation, it's not just about you and your partner. There is a third, being out there, a third entity, and they have their own timeline as well. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So sometimes we feel like we can be doing everything under the sun, and, it's actually not all about us. It's not all about our timing. And sometimes I think, that really helps. And, there's an amazing book out there called Spirit Baby. So I don't know if you've read it or not.
No, I haven't.
And I would encourage any of your listeners to read that if, you are dealing with this.
Yeah.
But it's like spirit babies choose us, and it's also about their timing. And so, like you said, like just kind of surrendering to that as well. And, making sure that you're living your life and not putting things on hold, and having fun. And, your child wants to join the fun as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But I mean, of course. I mean, fear, it's like I was there. I was so fearful. I was completely debilitated with fear, because, there's so many things that are at play when you're dealing with this uncertainty and you're looking into your future and knowing what you want, and it's just not happening. And there's so many frustrations around that. And I mean, for me, like, I find using EFT, I don't know if your listeners are familiar with that. It's called an emotional freedom technique. It's a really incredible practice, but it's incredible for shifting fear. It's incredible for shifting any kind of traumas, and obviously just bringing down stress levels. So there was actually a Harvard study that showed that women who were involved in like mind-body programs were over twice as likely to conceive regardless of their age or diagnosis. Yeah. Which I think is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So just making sure that you are taking care of yourself, like, the body piece is such a huge piece, but it needs to be teamed up with the mindset stuff. And just making sure that you are emotionally okay. Like, I see EFT as emotional acupuncture. That's how I kind of define it, because you have these 9 different tapping points, and when you tap on those points and you are expressing yourself on an emotional level, it's actually clearing any emotional blockages there. So it really works on like a physiological level, which is incredible. Like, you can actually bring down pain levels, you can clear past traumas, you can deal with addictions, and certainly fear. So, I think that's a huge piece for me. I mean, obviously there's the other stuff like the mindfulness and the meditation time in nature and deep breathing and dancing or snuggling with your fur baby or your lover.
Yeah, for sure. I'm really glad.
Belly laughs and yin yoga.
Yeah.
Like all of these things activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which, reduces stress and promotes hormonal balance in the body, which is what we need for regular ovulation,
Yeah, definitely. And I'm so glad you brought that up about energetics and like the storage and the holding on to of energy in the body, which can manifest into illness and disease later down the track. Because, I think because we can't see it and we can't necessarily feel it, though that's not always true for some people, because we can't see it, although some people can see it too. So I take a back step there, but the regular person who's just on this, this beginning part or medium part of the journey might not be familiar with energetics, and how that gets stored in the body. And so EFT, so glad that you brought that up, because I know that it's a big part of what you do, and clearing those emotional and energetic blocks. It's a big part of it. I feel like, when you go to a professional, a doctor or a gynecologist or an obstetrician, whatever it is, they very much focus on the physical, like these are the physical things you need to do, but they very rarely it's just such a small portion. They very rarely access all of the other components as well.
Yeah, and it's usually one thing in isolation and not looking at the whole picture,
Yes.
Like everything is connected to everything. Like, there's the mind piece, the body piece, the spirit piece, like we are, whole beings, and we have, you can't just fix one thing in isolation without it having a knock-on effect to like the rest of the body and the rest of the mind and the rest of the spirit,
Yeah.
So
and far often too, like when there is, this is going into quantum, because obviously we have like an electromagnetic field, and when there's damage done to our electromagnetic fields, and we're shrinking, where our field is actually shrinking, it actually does allow disease to happen quite quickly, because there's not this kind of protective barrier that's kind of navigating its way around our force, like our physical body. And so people can often say like, I don't understand why this happened to me, or I don't understand why I got this particular illness. But that's because there's no understanding of, the emotional exhaustion that's happening, the energetic exhaustion, the mental exhaustion, the exhaustion to the spirit as well, so you just don't know exactly what's going on until you create more awareness of self. And,
absolutely.
One of the highlights here I wanted to just touch on is miscarriage, because I've experienced miscarriage when I was looking to conceive before I had my daughter. And it was one of the most excruciatingly painful experiences that I've ever been through. But
I'm so sorry, honey.
Oh yeah, look, this was a long time ago now. I think we're going back 11 or 12 years, and it's about 33% of women actually experience miscarriage, so it's very common.
Very common,
Very, very common, right? And I think, back then, if I had have known what I know now, it would have been a different experience for me, because like you said, spirit babies choose us, right? And it's not always the right timing. And when they come in and they go, well, this body isn't quite ready to hold me physically, I'm not going to stay here. I'm actually going to leave. So, there's so much at play from, in a spiritual sense, but also in a physical and an emotional sense as well. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. This also brings me to the importance of community and how healing does not happen in isolation.
Yeah.
We need to have our people. We need to have our support networks.
Yeah.
For me, I don't know, this kind of thing comes really easily, but for others, I know it doesn't. Reaching out and getting that support isn't easy for everybody. For me, I just feel like if I don't communicate what I'm going through, I'll just explode.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm really, really good at creating community for myself. So I do know that this is a challenging piece for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But, women who actually do have community, and are in, you know, some form of support group actually get pregnant twice as fast, which is kind of an amazing stat that I've learned. And, you know, so for anybody out there who is dealing with this, like I would so encourage you to like find your support people, you know, find your network, find a place where you feel safe to share what you're dealing with, because, you know, going through this alone is just, you know, it's awful. You don't want to be in that position.
And
it's so much better to have that support.
You can see why it happens though, because, you know, like, there's two things here. Like when I had my miscarriage, it was really interesting to see how many women actually went, yes, I've experienced this before, but I never knew that in my circle because people don't talk about it, right? Because it's just one of those things you don't talk about. And that leads me to my next point, in that there is this common, I guess, negative connotation that happens within women, that we're so worried about being inadequate or not enough, that if we show ourselves to other people, you know, we could be judged, or, you know, this fear of like people thinking less of us, that we can't conceive a baby. It's really horrible, you know, like to actually think that as a woman when we should be supporting each other. But
absolutely,
there's that fear.
For sure.
Yeah, that fear. Do you think? Like, that's just my thoughts.
Yeah, and also like the fear of like, you know, with your partner and stuff. I know like for me, I was really fearful because I knew that my husband wanted to have kids, you know, and I really wanted to be the one to give him that. And there was like this fear of like, well, what if I can't? You know, what if I can't give him that? Yeah. I mean, I was so hell bent on the fact that I was going to be a mother. Yeah. Like before I met Chris, I was looking into adoption. I was looking into fostering. I was ready to go back to South Africa and adopt a little baby there. Yeah. I was open to egg donors, surrogacy. Like I was just so open. Yeah. I think, I'd kind of gotten to that space where I was just like, you know, my baby may not come to me in the way that I think it will, and that's okay. Like I was so open to any possibility, even meeting somebody who already had kids who I could, you know, smother from afar or whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
But, you know, that fear of, you know, obviously that's the ideal, right? For us to have our own biological kids, and as women, like that's what we want. And it's just, like for me, like that fear piece was also in my relationship. Like, well, what will our relationship look like? How will that impact our relationship if we don't have that together? Yeah. You know, so
so much pressure.
Certainly,
like that's
so much pressure.
So much pressure. Goodness. It's like
major pressure cooker.
Oh my God. It's like, oh my gosh, I feel unlovable if I can't deliver this. And it's like, what? You know, it's like full on, isn't it? The pressure that we put on ourselves for this. And
absolutely.
And it brings me to one of your points here of like, you know, the why. Like why do you want to have a baby? Why do you and your partner want to have a baby? Like, what's your thoughts on that and how people can navigate that? Because I think sometimes I know that, you know, I'm going to be 44 soon, but in my late 20s, early 30s, you know, there was this social pressure. You know, you find someone, you get married, you buy a house, you get a dog, you have babies, you know, you travel. There's this timeline of trying to hit all of these things, and it just seems so unrealistic and not at all what life is like. And, you know, there is an expectation, I think, on people to tick that off the list, even though maybe that's not what they want.
Yeah, no, some people it is. It's more just like, oh, well, isn't that just like the next step, right? Like, and I think it is really important to discover your why and to write it down and to talk to your partner about it. You know, because I do think having that strong, you know, why piece is really important. Like, why do you want to have a baby? And having a strong intention behind your creation together. Yeah. You know, I just think that kind of helps you to frame it in a really healthy way for the two of you. Yeah. And I think it kind of leaves a space for that spirit baby to also understand, where they're fitting in and the kind of family that they're going to be, brought into. So, I mean, even just like, writing your baby a love letter and, they're just all these beautiful little pieces that we can bring to the party just to kind of help ourselves kind of deal with the space that we're in right now.
And I love that, because writing is so healing as well. Like that expression, expression of writing it down and external, like getting it out of yourself and writing it down onto paper is a really healing experience in itself. And I love that. I love that idea of like, kind of like wanting them to come in, but also going, I understand, when you're ready, you'll join us. And, there's so much love here. I can just imagine like writing that little baby a little love letter, how beautiful that would be. What a beautiful experience that would be. But also like a healing experience for me to like, say it's okay. Like I'm giving into the process, and whatever this is going to be, it's going to be. And you just come in when you're ready. And I love that. Is that one of some of the things like that you do with your clients? I would love to know, like, what does it look like when someone comes to you for help?
Like from start to finish?
Yeah. Like I know that you do so much, like honestly, and there's only like so much we can cover in our chat, right? But like you must have so many different people coming to you for so many different things. What would be like the main reason women come to you?
I mean, I think the main reason is, either they are looking to go down the IVF route and want to maximize their chances, because IVF is bloody expensive. And I know my son cost me $17,000.
Yeah. Wow. Yes. Yeah.
So it's an expensive route to go. And, for me, I felt like that was the route that I needed to go. I felt like I was running out of time. If I had kind of known what I know now, I don't know if I would have rushed into IVF. Well, I didn't rush into it, but, I may have given myself a bit more time. But yeah, certainly like, the main objectives are really to be creating the healthiest families and the healthiest babies. So, the health of the mother is so important, but I just can't see anything having more gravity than bringing healthy babies into this world. Because, giving our kids the best start in life is the best gift that we can give them. So whenever their timeline is, whenever they choose to come to us, you just want to be in the best possible space for yourself. You want your body to be in the best space. You want to have, gotten all those heavy metals out of your body, dealt with all your health issues, you know what I mean? Like just be in the strongest space that you possibly can be.
Yeah. And not just for the baby, but for yourself, right?
Exactly. Because it starts with you. It starts with you. But it's like ultimately it's for the whole family, you know?
Yep. So because the mother is, the woman is they are the foundation of the household. They're the ones that when the health starts within the home, it's usually within the woman, right? Because she's the one that's cooking the meal. She's the one that's changing the environment. Again, it's a lot of pressure, right? Because I'm thinking, it's so much pressure. But everybody learns off us. A lot. Yeah, but everyone learns off us, and we rub off on them, and they see what we're doing, and they copy us, and they do what we do. So, it's
absolutely
so important.
My husband, when we first moved in together, he was like, oh my goodness, our pantry looks like some weird apothecary.
I love that.
What I mean? Like I just had he was like, what is this shelf? Like they were just powders and all these superfoods and, mushroom powders and elixirs. And I just remember him saying to his friend, like, I don't recognize anything in our pantry, but I've been guaranteed I'll live to over 100.
Well, see, look, and that's the thing, right? That's the thing is that women, we are natural healers. We're natural medicine people, you know.
Yeah.
We do these things to support ourselves, but our family and our community.
Yeah.
And so, I mean,
and we want to nourish our families, you know, we want to make sure that we're doing the best for them. And, you know, when I want to buy that expensive water filter, Chris, you know, is like, well, are we really doing this? And I'm like, yes, we are. Because for me, like, health is number one. Like, if we do not have our health, we have nothing.
Yes.
Absolutely nothing. Nothing else in the world matters more. I mean, obviously family, but you like, health is everything. If your kids don't have their health, if you don't have your health, and if you don't, you know, gain the awareness and create strategies for longevity for your family, you know what I mean? Like, where does that leave you? It's like, some people will look at what I do and how I live my life, and they're like, oh, that looks stressful. And I'm like, you know what? It's not, because I know that I'm doing the absolute best that I can. And if anything happens, like, then it is what it is. Do you know what I mean? I know that I've done the best for my family. I know that I've done the best for myself. And anything else that comes my way is really out of my control.
Yes.
And maybe I could have done better. But, you know, I think we just need to feel like we are doing the best that we can.
Yeah.
And we need to, and knowledge is power. And so for me, it's my role, it's my destiny to educate as many people as I can, as many women as I can, on how to take care of themselves and how to, you know, bring healthy children into this world. Like, for me, there's no greater purpose.
Yes, and I
like,
love that.
That's where it's at.
I love that so much. And so, just for our listeners, now that we're starting to wrap up, where can people find you if they want to reach out?
Yeah. Okay. Well, Instagram is probably the best place. Yep. My handle is Abi, ABI.Wilde. So that's WILDE. So Abi.Wilde is my handle on Instagram. You can follow me there, send me a DM, connect, you know, we can chat over tea and toast, whatever.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. And I'll put all of your details in the show notes as well, and then it will be promoted on social, so people will be able to follow that and to get access to you and be able to reach out to you. Is there anything that you wanted to add before we finish today at all?
Oh, I mean, just like, oh gosh, I mean, I've got a million things that I could say.
Yeah.
But I think it's just understanding that we have to heal holistically, you know. So if you're dealing with any infertility issues, or, you know, you're just wanting to get your body up to scratch and, you know, give yourself the best chance at a good IVF cycle, there are just so many things that we can do to improve your chances of a good egg retrieval, to improve your chances of natural conception. There's so many things that can be done. And, you know, just don't lose hope, because there's always hope. I was in the same position as you. Like, I did not know if this was going to happen for me. I was, you know, 39, you know, really unsure about what the outcomes were going to be. But, you know, there's always hope, and there's always something that you can do and something that you can action. And knowledge is power. So empower yourself with the knowledge, get educated, and, you know, formulate a path forward, and then keep going. One step at a time, one day at a time, one change at a time, because a lot of these things can feel a bit overwhelming, you know. There's a lot of changes that you can make in your life to improve your chances. And, it's just kind of one step at a time.
I love that. Thank you so much for coming on today and talking. I've just loved this chat, and time has just like taken off. We're nearly at an hour. Can you believe it? It's crazy.
I can actually.
Yeah, I know.
I can talk about this stuff forever.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah. We'll have to have you back.
Thank you so much.
After Sadie comes along and like talk, you know, post baby and like what that's like, absolutely. And how to take care of yourself and what you're doing. I would love that. And I follow your journey a bit there. That'd be amazing. So
Absolutely. I would love that so much. And thanks so much for having me on. It's been such a pleasure.
you're so welcome. And just for my listeners, if you have enjoyed today's chat, please don't forget to leave a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. And if there is someone out there who you know needs to hear this chat and take home some of these amazing messages, please don't forget to share it with your family and friends. But anyway, until next time, I will see you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
The information, views, and opinions expressed on this podcast should not be used or treated as a substitute for nutritional, medical, psychological, or other advice by a qualified health professional. Hosts and guests in this podcast express their own opinions, experiences, and conclusions, and nothing in this podcast should be used to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any medical condition. All information and advice provided is for general well-being and does not take individual cases into consideration. Neither Tracy Lee or any sponsor endorse the opinions, views, or conclusions expressed or shared on this podcast. Tracy Lee takes no responsibility for any symptoms or consequences as a direct or indirect result of this podcast.